Hey everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and I am very, very late to this. I know the show's been out for, 2 weeks now? But I finally finished watching Echo. Look, they released the whole thing all at once, and I felt like, okay, that's the best way to review it, but also I've been busy, so I only just now got to finish it. So I acknowledge it's kind of out of the cultural conversation already. Most people have already watched it or didn't watch it, and they moved on. And this is, an interesting one because, like I said, they released it all at once. They've never done this for a Marvel show, and most people took this as an immediate red flag, oh no, something's wrong with this one. And there were rumors, of this is some kind of trash fire, and they just want to get it out of the way. That way people forget about it. And I gotta say, I was really surprised. It was not a trash fire. It definitely was not that. It has some problems. Well, it has, I think, one problem, but we'll get to that. So, to start off with, I had not watched the Hawkeye show since it came out. That's not one that I've rewatched. Maybe I should. It's been, obviously it's been over a year now. So I need to refamiliarize myself with who Echo was. I vaguely remember, okay, her dad died and Kingpin was responsible in some way, and then she shot him in the eye. That's all I really remember about the character. So, luckily for me, the whole first episode was basically a recap on who this girl was and what she did and what her relationship to Kingpin was, and her dad died and all of that stuff. Plus, we got a pretty decent fight against Daredevil, who I had assumed would come back in some way, but he's only here in this one fight. And this kind of relates back to the major problem, I think, with the show. The one very specific problem. We'll get to that again. But anyways, it's a pretty cool fight. And basically, they fast forward to after Hawkeye, where she shoots Kingpin. It's 5 months later or something. And she goes back home. She goes back to the, hopefully I'm saying this right, Choctaw? I don't know. Anyway, she goes back to her home, and, all of her uncles and aunts and cousins and all these people that she has not seen in 20 years, ever since her mom died in a car crash. And basically it's just her she's trying to take on what remains of Kingpin's empire, all these people that are after her because she's got a bounty on her head. They call her the King Killer and all that. And yeah, she's basically just trying to take out their operation, create an empire of her own. And it's only a 5-episode show, so this does not take that long. You know what I mean? The plot moves along pretty briskly. And basically, yeah, we find out the Kingpin, of course, is not dead, and he's alive again, and he offers her an empire, and she rejects it. And all along, there's this other subplot going on where she sees visions of, I guess, past family members, and they all awaken some kind of ancient power. And it's very vaguely defined. They don't explain it that well exactly. It's some kind of healing power. Her hands get all glowy. They glow, and that's her power. I guess she heals both physical and emotional things because they can bring birds back to life, I guess. And they kind of use it at the end against Kingpin. This is how they defeat him, to heal his emotional damage. I guess that's basically what happened. She healed his trauma with her powers. That seems to be all that really happened. So instead of becoming, instead of trying to kill him again, which you kind of think is what's going to happen here, yeah, she just kind of places her hands on his damaged eye, and they go back to his childhood home where, and we're going to talk about the Netflix of it all, because we see kind of similar events where his dad and his mom and the hammer and all that stuff happened. And he's looking at the wall that was chipped, and so basically he gets healed in some kind of weird way that they don't explain it very well. That's the truth. He's just what'd you do? And then he leaves, and all right, okay, I guess he's better, kind of, maybe. I don't know. And then that's pretty much it. They all go their separate ways. and then that's how the show ends. And that's pretty much its one big problem, is that like it's very clear, and it was reported that there was supposed to be a 6th episode. They cut it down to 5. They released it all at once, and I think it's obvious to most people that like, okay, there was a whole other episode, a whole different ending, and they chopped it up for some reason. There was something in that last episode that they did not like, and they're like, we gotta we gotta fix this somehow. I don't know what exactly it was, but the ending we got is very rushed. You know, it definitely feels like those last like 15 minutes are like, we need to end this show now. So, you know, they're like, okay, shoot that guy with the rocket launcher, shoot that guy, heal Kingpin, they run away, everyone's happy, the end. Like it wraps up so quick. They don't explain the powers that well. Oh, and her cousin and her grandma also get powers, but they don't seem to like question anything that's happening. They're not like, what glowy hands, okay, like and then the fight scene against his minions at the end, it's literally like they escape, they get like 2 punches, and then Kingpin gets healed, and then that's it. The fight's over. There's no more fighting. Everything's fine. So it really was just like, okay. They rushed it so much at that last like little finish line. So I don't know. We'll probably never find out exactly what the ending was unless like a script leaks or we get some interesting deleted scenes. I suspect that Daredevil was involved. You know, kind of infamously, there was a report last year that like the whole Daredevil show that was supposed to tie into this show, it's getting completely overhauled. Like they had some stuff shot, some stuff done, and whatever happened, they didn't like it, and they are completely starting over. And so a lot of people suspect that, okay, this show was gonna lead up to that. It had things in its last episode that were like somehow directly related to that. I imagine it's more of the Kingpin running for mayor stuff that we kind of see at the end credits here. I imagine more of that was involved, and they just had to like chop the hell out of this show in order to get rid of that because they're changing Daredevil, or you know, I have to imagine something to that effect is what happened here. Because yeah, the last 15 minutes are just like, please end the show, yeah, and they're like running towards that finish line. So yeah, otherwise I really like the show. That's the thing about it, is that like, even though the ending is very clearly chopped up and rushed and they just like wanted to get this over with, otherwise I really liked it. I liked her family, I liked everything that's going on, and the action scenes, the choreography, like all this stuff. I really liked everything that was happening. And it's kind of funny in that sense, where I was kind of waiting. I was like, all these big rumors were coming out, like, oh, it's bad, it's gonna be horrible, and I'm like, it's not so far. Like I'm watching, I'm on episode 4, on episode 3, I'm like, everything's fine. What's, you know, what was the big deal? What's everyone like panicking about? Why they release it like this? And you know, it's not till the very end that you kind of see like, oh, okay, I get it. There's something happened at the last episode. They had to like just end this, and then I guess they just wanted people to move on. I guess maybe that really was the plan, just to get people to move away from the conversation. That way it's not so focused on, because that's the truth. Whenever one of these shows comes out, especially if it doesn't perform well, which, you know, unfortunately that's like half the time, that's always the conversation. You know what I mean? Like for weeks and weeks, as long as the show is running, the conversation's always like, oh, Marvel fell off, Marvel's failed, Marvel's done for, and it just keeps happening. So I guess if the plan was to get this over with and to not let people talk about it, it kind of worked, because it's definitely not something that's going to be trending, you know, anymore. Maybe the day it released it was, but it's kind of over, right? So yeah, I guess the plan worked. So I don't know, guys. Overall, I really like the show. I like the violence and the, you know, we're getting back to the Netflix of it all, and so let's talk about that. Yeah, so there were some comments made recently about how, you know, one of the producers of Marvel one of like the, you know, higher up producers of Marvel, he says in his exact quote, he's like, I personally would consider the Netflix stuff in the sacred timeline. That's how he puts it, right? And all the headlines ran with that, like, oh, it's confirmed, Netflix is canon to the MCU, right? And then a couple weeks after that, on Disney Plus, the Netflix shows got added to the MCU timeline section, which, you know, I suppose, other than Kevin Feige himself coming out and saying this, I suppose that would be like the most official way of saying it's part of the MCU canon timeline, right? Like having those Netflix shows be put under that section on Disney Plus, because I mean, I guess that makes it pretty official, because now if you ever go to MCU timeline, they're on the timeline. My only thing about this, and I know I've gotten a lot of people disagreeing with me, because people feel really passionate about this, like they're taking this a lot more seriously than I am, and it's, you know, okay. My only thing is that even in this Echo show, right, like in the promotional material, they used Kingpin's footage from Daredevil, right, which was people's first, like, oh my god, it's official. And yet the hammer that he uses, and he claims that this hammer is the one that killed his father, the hammer, and it's been like a meme going around, the hammer does not look the same. Someone said they recast the hammer. And then at the end, when they're going through like Kingpin's trauma, right, the wall that he looks at while his dad's doing that, the wall that he stares out, the cracked wall, the thing that's like his famous trauma, the painting and everything, right, it's not the same wall. It's not in the same location. He's not, you know what I mean? So like he's got like these weird variants that are off. It's not the same hammer, it's not the same wall in the same location, you know. So to me, you know, and again, I'm not taking this seriously, so if they come out and say like no, the Netflix versions are literally the exact versions, if they come out and say that, I don't really care. It's whatever, it's not a big deal. But to me, the fact that they have these little things that are slightly off, to me that tells me like, okay, the Netflix stuff kind of happened. It all sort of very similar but slightly different things happened, because, you know, these are supposed to be Kingpin's memories. Obviously they don't line up with what we had before, but they're so similar that this had to have been on purpose, right? Like this couldn't have been an accident, because clearly they watched the Daredevil show, they saw that, okay, he's supposed to have this hammer and it's supposed to be looking at a wall, but then they changed what the wall looks like and they changed what the hammer looks like. So they didn't, it's not like an accident, right? Like they didn't do that accidentally, it's clearly on purpose. So now you have to ask like, okay, why would they do that on purpose? And to me that means, okay, they're trying to tell you that very similar events, you could essentially call them the Netflix show's canon, but they're not explicitly directly canon. And I think the reason that they would do this, and this is the point that I've been making online that people get real mad about, is that you know, there are some small little, you know, and I don't have a list in front of me, but there are some small little timeline discrepancies, little events that happen in New York specifically that you'd have to be like, well, you know, why wouldn't X be here, or why haven't they talked about this or that, or, you know, didn't this happen during this time, you know, stuff like that, right? Little timeline discrepancies. So I have always said that it would be better if they just said, these versions of Daredevil and Kingpin and all the characters that we're bringing back and all the actors we're bringing back, these are timeline variants of those Netflix versions. And you can even go ahead and say that near exact versions, near exact events happened, where you could watch the show and say like, this is an approximation of what happened in the MCU. And the reason you would do this is that way you have that wiggle room of being like, okay, any kind of weird canon discrepancies can be explained away now because that was a different timeline and this is this timeline. So similar but maybe slightly different things happened, you know? I don't know. That's just me. I know it's very silly. No one really cares this much, right? Well, some people care this much. But I don't know. And again, if they come out and say that no, the exact Netflix versions, those exact same ones from the show, are the same, then I'm like, well, then what the hell is up with the hammer? Why did you do that then? You know, maybe they'll go back and edit that in the show. They'll CGI out that hammer and put in a different hammer. That'd be really funny if they did that. I can see it happening though. It wouldn't be the first time. They just go back and like, oop, wrong hammer. The internet found it. They go back out and just edit that real quick. That'd be kind of funny. Anyways, yeah, so that's Echo. And like I said, overall, I enjoyed the show. I enjoyed the cast. I liked her family and her backstory. They definitely need to explain those powers and what exactly happened to Kingpin at the end. His trauma was healed, but what does that mean? You know, like he's clearly going to still be a villain, right? It's not like he's just a good guy now. So, but you're like healed all of his stuff, but like, is that permanent? What does that mean exactly? I don't know. So yeah, the ending just needed to be explained more. It's clear that like a lot of stuff got cut. But yeah, overall, not a bad series. It's definitely like, it's definitely not anything worse than, like, you know, half of the Marvel Disney Plus shows, right? Like this is, I would say, on par with Hawkeye and Falcon and Winter Soldier and all those shows. You know, it's like, yeah, they got the choreography down, it's got some choppy editing, and the ending was kind of which is like, yeah, it's same as usual. And maybe that's why they put it all out at once. Maybe they're like, oh, we can't let people keep thinking this is the same as usual. But in any case, that is Echo, the series. Obviously I'm very late, but yeah, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.